Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Lake, would you care to answer the question further, the last question further? Do you want to expound on any of that?
Well, I think it is difficult to meet with people when they're suing you. It just isn't advised. And if any attorney would tell you, you can't sit down and meet with somebody who's launched malicious lawsuits against the agency, naming me in those lawsuits. So it'd be ill-advised to do that, obviously. You know, we do not have a current grant agreement with RFE, Radio Free Europe, which was started, you know, many, many years ago as a CIA operation. And we don't have a current grant agreement with them. We've been asking to work with them, negotiating a grant agreement, and they refuse. We offered a grant to them, and they refused to even mark it up and redline it and send it back to us. So we don't have an approved financial plan. They won't tell us where they're spending their money. We've got an audit going on right now, and they've stonewalled and prevented us from getting any access to their financial books. Again, we pay them, and they do not tell us where the money is going. I think that's a problem. I think the American people deserve to know where their money is going. And so we're working to make sure we get that. Interestingly, in the 11th hour last night, right before I crawled into bed, we found out that they're finally going to give a little bit of information to our auditors. I thought it was really interesting timing because they didn't want me to sit up here and say they refused to let us look at their books. They refused to let us see where the American taxpayer dollars are going and once it's getting funneled into RFERL. And if they really, you know, we've paid them every month, by the way. So if they're not protecting their journalists, it's on them. If they're not putting out broadcasting, it's on them. We have paid them every month because the judge has ordered us to, and so it's on them if they're not putting out broadcasting.
Mr. Lake, this is clearly an agency that is run amok. I wouldn't characterize it as treason, but it sounds like it's certainly seditious. Are you familiar with the McGuire-Woods report?
I'm very familiar, and it's in one of these binders, and it was an incredible report looking at some of the mismanagement, misuse of funds, and other outrageous things that were happening at this agency.
To that end, I just want to inform you that I struggled mightily, probably for about 6 months in this committee and in Congress to have that entered into the congressional record so that the American people could see the misuses of their money and the seditious activity by an agency they were paying for. And I think as part of that, 40% of the workforce at that time was improperly vetted, and USAGM lost their ability to conduct security clearances, but continued to conduct them for 10 years after which they had lost their ability to conduct security clearances, and that the use of J-1 visas to hire foreign journalists and technical staff without systematic review resulted in propaganda that was favorable to adversaries and enemies as opposed to the United States of America with American tax dollars, paid for with American tax dollars. Now, somebody might say, well, that was a mistake, and yeah, that was a misstep, but it seems to me this was an orchestrated plan by someone at USAGM. And so my question begins with, have we determined from the McGuire-Woods report or any of your investigation at this point who, by name, authorized this activity over that long period of time, and these people antithetical to the United States of America, who did that, and what accountability has been put in place? What prosecutions have happened as a result of that? What accountability has taken place, if any?
Sadly, there hasn't been any accountability. That McGuire-Woods report was done in the waning days of President Trump's first term. Michael Pack was the CEO, and he helped make that possible. He saw, the first day on the job, he got dropped on his desk this issue with 1,500 employees had not been properly screened. And he said, this is a real big problem. ODNI was saying, you got a serious problem over there. You guys are freelancing on your security screenings, and you're allowing dangerous people into our country. And so they got busy investigating how this was happening. They put people on administrative leave, and before they could do anything and fire people, people had left that were being investigated. When the Trump administration ended and Biden went into office and replaced the leadership at this agency, they rehired all of those people back.
So let me,
and
and
gave
I
them
don't mean to
settlements
cut
of
you off, Ms. Lake, but
$650,000.
I've got a limited amount of time. Of course, this is completely outrageous, but why should anybody in this country, anybody in this committee, anybody in Congress believe that this agency, this operation should continue to exist and won't return to its former operations and activities beyond the Trump administration and beyond your tenure? Why should anyone believe that?
They shouldn't believe it, and I think this is why President Trump wants to eliminate the agency. The agency itself is not needed. It's proven that it does not know how to manage and does not know how to be respectful of this country and the American taxpayers' dollars. And so I think President Trump is absolutely right in eliminating this agency. We can roll in things that are valuable, that are worthwhile, bring it under the Department of State, where it once was, by the way. Voice of America, back when it was effective, back when many of you talk about the glory days of Voice of America, it was under the Department of State, where there were guardrails on the story of America was being told. It wasn't anti-American, it was in line with our foreign policy. And I think that's where it probably should end up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield.